Hi there. My name is Gil Robs, and I'm a race director for Mind the Ducks 12 Hour. Mind the Ducks 12 Hour is a timed ultra marathon, which is held annually on Mother's Day's weekend at North Ponds Park in Webster. What's specific about timed ultras that you, instead of going for a distance, you run as many miles as you can in a certain time period. And in this case, it's 12 hours. So today's Zoom interview, I invited 2022 Mind the Ducks winner Natha Price and John, who was in second place and won the Masters division of the Mind the Ducks. Welcome, guys, and congratulations on your wins.
Thank you.
So, guys, since you're winners, I'm sure the other folks are curious about how you did at the race and all that stuff. So I'll start with you, Nathan and John. So tell us about your 2022 Mind the Ducks experience. What was your goal for a race? What was your plan for a race as far as how to run and how to walk?
Mm-hmm.
What was your plan for food and drinks? How well you executed your plans? What kind of adjustments did you do? So
Okay.
go ahead, Nathan.
Well, basically my objective going into this race, since I haven't really run it since 2019, was to my ultimate goal was try to repeat what I did in 2019. I know that was a big task since I didn't do as much training as I did before. Because in 2019 I did, I think, 71 laps, I think. So that was, always trying to shoot for the same, but given the conditions leading up to it, I knew that wind was going to be very tricky, probably at some part of the course, which it was running around at that last corner there. Ugh. But yeah, my strategy was really, I have an app on my phone that helps me keep in time. I tried to build up to keep the run for 5 minutes, walk for 1. And I try to stick with that as long as I can, not deviating at all if I can. It's basically my concept of is once I start moving and running, I don't stop until 12 hours is up. Unless something happens with like a cramp or something like that, no, I just keep moving. Because I know I go with I believe it's Newton's first law. An object tends to stay in motion when it's in motion, and unless I'm acted by an outside force. But yeah, so it's a run walk of 5 minutes and 1 minute walk. So, and I stayed to it for, I would say, almost probably 11 hours. And then the 5 minutes was getting kind of tough. But I should have probably backed it down to 4.5, but maybe for next year. And yeah, kept my hydration plan. Pretty much, I can't really eat much. If I do eat anything, it's either banana or watermelon. Basically, I just have a hydration mix that's very salty and got a lot of electrolytes. And I just drink those. Probably like 10 ounces of water or a hydration mix every half hour. And I just do those during my walking periods. So, and all in all, I was happy with the performance. My body responded better than I thought it was going to. So yeah, I pretty much stayed as to my plan as I could.
Mm-hmm. So 10 ounces every half hour or 10 ounces?
Yeah, within the every half hour, I'm drinking 10 ounces of liquid.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it matches what I did research years ago about how much you can consume. It's about 20 to like 40 ounces of liquids per hour. So it's like on a cold day like it was, I guess it was not a bad strategy.
Yep.
All right, John, how about you?
So my goal was to try to at least get 100 kilometers again, and then try to beat my number from last fall. I was happier that it was a little bit nicer weather than last fall. I mean, last fall was beautiful weather, but it was a little bit warm at the end or the beginning of September there. So this year, you know, it was very nice, but I agree with Nathan. The wind was kind of a challenge there, more so as the race kind of dragged on there towards the end. You know, it seemed like it was probably the same speed the whole time, the wind, but it felt like it was getting, you know, by the end of the race, it might as well have been a hurricane or something, the way it felt sometimes. But as for run walk, I don't really have a predetermined number. I try to just go with what feels comfortable in the first 6 hours or so. You know, sometimes it's difficult because you're trying to keep in mind that you need to, you know, no matter how slow you're going, you should probably go a little slower. And I stayed consistent with, you know, how I was running there. And then in the last part of the race, it was alternating, walking, you know, stopping at my station, and then walking the first part of the lap, and then right about that first 1/10 of a mile or two, and then start running again, and then kind of repeating that on and off the rest of the way. And then just kind of the last hour or so, just kind of just going with whatever you could do, run when you can, and walk the rest of the way. The one thing I definitely noticed this year was from a fluid standpoint, there was a lot less fluids that was, you know, still I try to stop every 2 laps to take even a little bit of a sip or something in. But last year it was stopping every lap to pour some water on to cool down and everything. And that was something that wasn't needed this year, but it was still pretty much the same strategy otherwise from taking in the fluids, just every couple laps, just taking in, and then food wise, pretty much the same thing I employed last year, just energy gels, some salty snacks like potato chips, and I love those Reese's cupcakes. They're small, but they're a lot of calories, and they go down pretty quick. And I try to do that, especially earlier on in the race when I feel more like eating and getting those calories in, so that later in the race when I don't feel like eating as much, I can rely more on just the small energy chews and such.
Mm-hmm. So you utilize your own personal aid stations, both of you, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I noticed like this year was probably one of the coldest races in the history. And speaking of drinking, one thing that I noticed at the aid station, for the first 4 hours, we did not empty 5-gallon water coolers. That was still full. You know, nobody was drinking.
Wow.
You know, which was, I don't recommend it, even if in the cold weather you still sweat and you lose liquids.
Yeah, you definitely got to keep it. That was one of the parts I needed to do. Is I know just got to get the fluids going, because I know the body's going to reject it later in the race. So I'm like, just got to push as much as I can, keep sticking to it, even if you don't want it, and just
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this year's race, actually, when I'm looking at the results, it's, you know, when I was looking overall, I checked in who was leading and whatnot. You know, it was not given that there was no clear favorite. I mean, Nathan was leading pretty much since halfway. I think pretty much from halfway on, or just even earlier. But John and other folks, Garrett and Brett, they were just on their heels, not letting up. So how you guys were you aware of your positions, and were you monitoring the screens of how that was going? And when did you know that you're going to be in a bag, and how did that change your strategy at the end of the race?
For me, the big screen is a double-edged sword for me. You know, I like to know where I am, but I don't like to know, because that's almost like I'm trying to look at it almost every time I go by it, even though I'm just like, I got plenty of time, just focus on your running. But I was aware of my position for the most part from the get-go. I don't know the guy's name. I just know him by the green hat guy, because I know he went out like like balls to the wall going real fast. And I'm like, okay, well, hopefully I can catch up to him. Long race. So I used him as a gauge to know that, when I checked the board, I saw that I was in second. So I knew he was the one to try to kind of reel in. And, my strategy really at the beginning of the race, since I didn't know how my legs were going to hold out or anything like that, I was pushing the pace far more than I normally would have done in the past. So like the first 16 miles, I think I was under 9 minutes. So, and I knew I had to, basically my strategy was get out quick, see what I can do, and trying to get ahead of everybody as much as I can, and then just maintain it. So, and really I wasn't confident because I know Garrett and I know John, and they were always right there. I didn't feel any kind of comfort, just a little, when I finally passed John for going up 3 laps on him. After that, I could say, okay, now I just got to maintain the rest of the way, keep moving, don't stop, just keep moving, even if you're not moving as fast as you were. And yeah, that was the end. It came out. So
it's worth mentioning at this point that Nathan is a repeat winner and John is a last year's winner. So it was head to head with the former winners to duke it out who's going to win this year. So, John, how it was for you to chase Nathan and the green head guy?
Yeah. Once I saw Nathan's name, when I checked the entrance throughout the year, once I saw his name in there, I knew he was probably going to be the winner right from the get-go. I remember him from 2019, and I remember him from the one candlelight race too. He's just the machine. He's just so efficient and so, and I expected that he was going to very much likely be the winner, and my hope was to just try to somewhat stay close to him. And I know he was ahead of me, I think, for the entire race, but we didn't cross paths too many times throughout the race. Mm-mm. It wasn't really until the end of the race that we did. In terms of watching the board, I try not to look at the board for the first 2 hours at all, because I know I'm being a competitive person. I know if I start looking at it, I'll focus way too much on that. And I know in these kind of races, you don't necessarily win the race in the first 2 hours, but you can certainly lose it in the first 2 hours if you try pushing too hard and doing too much. And then after that, I just, I knew Garrett was there. There was a couple other people I recognized. And I saw my position, and I think at one point I was in 7th, and then I moved up to 5th, and then 4th, and then 3rd. And it's just, I've gotten now where I've done a couple of these, and I've learned that if you just kind of trust the process and just keep doing what you're doing, little by little, things will work out, and then you can just kind of see where things are at later on and go from there. But it's towards the end of the race, I knew there was no catching Nathan. I was just trying to hold off Garrett, and I'll tell you right now, Garrett's an impressive runner. Yeah. And I'm familiar with him from both Mind the Ducks and other races too. And I knew that if I let up at any bit, that he would definitely push me for that second place. So I was very cognizant of trying to keep an eye on where he was. And, the last lap, when we were kind of just walking it through, I was still kind of looking over my shoulder, and I decided not to take any chances and just kind of run it the rest of the way rather than have Garrett come sneak up on me, because he's an incredible athlete. So.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Garrett is the only one. I mean, actually, he's not the only one who averaged 100K in every Mind the Ducks he participated, but he have done it right now 7 times. So, yeah. He tends to speaking of that leaderboard, it's like, I'm glad to hear that you guys are not paying too much attention to it, because it's years ago, there was no scrolling screen where you could see your position lap by lap. Uh-huh. And that's when I was running, I think, but my best Mind the Ducks was 2012. And we could see the like it would, timing software would show they randomly, one of the runners flash for like 10, 15 seconds on the screen, your times. And we would, it seemed like every runner at the end of the lap would play the games. They want to just distance, let the folks to run ahead and look back, do I have somebody trailing who's going to bump me off the screens to get the feedback? And it's, when you're tired, the one thing that I remember, when you're tired is like, you think you ran more laps than you really did. And I, numerous times throughout the race, I was convinced that we didn't, I mean, I got some laps were cheated on me until I get home, like look at the splits and it was fine. So when I introduced that scrolling screen, which seems to be norm these days, just that was the purpose. So the guys would get instant feedback of that, just this is your lap, this is your lap, that stuff. But, just you probably notice as well, there's like often the runners as well, I just sit there and spend like 2-3 minutes looking at the results. So,
Yeah.
but, I'm glad the winners are going through it and, not doing that stuff. So, so that's more or less the race. So tell us guys more about yourselves, what's your athletic background, how you get into running, when you get into ultras, what was your first ultra?
Well, I have been a runner pretty much my whole life, high school, track, and I mainly did sprints for the most part in high school and college. Then I kind of fell out of running really. I graduated in 99, and then I did my first marathon, the Rochester one, in 2009. And just because that was kind of at the time, a kind of a, check it off your list of running accomplishments and things like that. So I'm like, okay, I'll try that. And at the end of it, I was like, yeah, I don't need to do that again or go any further. No, why would I have to do that? That's insane. And so fast forward till 2014, 2013, I did Ragnar relay with my wife's family. We did the one from Saratoga to Lake Placid, which was very fun. And that got me back into running more. And then someone told me about obstacle course racing. A lot of people probably know like Tough Mudder or Spartan racing. And I got hooked on that for a lot, for doing those from 2014 to, I still do them now, not as much, but I was heavy into doing those. And I noticed then with the Spartan racing, a lot of it is running up, well, quote unquote, running up and down mountains and doing obstacles, carrying heavy stuff. So I'm like, I need to get a better endurance. So in comes ultra running. And I did my first ultra, which was 2015. I did the Menden 50K, the 10K loop that you run the 5 times. I did that one, and not bad, but I'm like, okay, don't really need to do more. I got that one step over the marathon, got the quote ultra tag on it. So, and then I'm not really sure how I came about it, but then next year, the 2016, that's when I discovered Mind the Duck, and I'm like, oh, that sounds like fun. Run around a loop as many times as you can in 12 hours. I mean, what could be that bad? And it's mostly flat. So, and really after that, I haven't really looked back. And I pretty much now consider myself more of an ultra runner than even a obstacle course racing athlete, because I do really enjoy it a lot.
Do you have a preference for distance ultras or timed ultras?
For me, I don't really have one for. I do like the timed ones, but I also for the distance, the farther the better. I do like the 12 hours one is good. I almost, wish you threw a 24-hour one in there. I think that would be fun. I really do. If you could, especially if you could even do it at the park there at 24 hours and have people running with headlamps. I think that would be really cool. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, distance, I go, I guess, based on time. My ultimate goal is to try to get 100 miles under 24 hours, which I hope to accomplish this year. So we'll see.
Have you done 100 miles?
I completed my first one last year. I was talking to John about it in our last lap there. It's the Mighty Mosquito. There's the shirt here. You can see part of it. I completed it last year and I got 26 hours, just over 26 hours. So hopefully this year I can bump under the 24-hour.
Any preference if you're a runner? I mean, there's some runners who specialize roads, some are trail runners. Do you surface? Do you have a preference?
I prefer trail running. I don't know if it's just the scenery, but I just developed with my training too. I developed a liking to trail running because one, it works all those little tiny stabilizer muscles in your legs and stuff and ankles, which really helps. And I mean, if you're doing like the pond, that's just a little bit, but the road races, that hurts. Just a constant pounding on there, my legs just take a beating. I did just not like it anymore. So, but
yeah, very good, John. John, how about you?
So my background, I guess I started running in high school. I did track. And when I did track in high school, it was middle distance, 800 meters, a few times 1600 meters, but mostly 800 was what I did there. I ran cross country in college. And then after that, I kind of had a period of time where I wasn't really running so much. I was active, but not doing races or anything like that. I got actually encouraged back into running when I started working my current job. Very supportive group of people here, and they encouraged me to get back into it. So people I work with, Sue and Jason, they, suggested, they signed me up for like the Boilermaker race, and we did the corporate challenge race out here. And that was around 2011. And then from that point, I just got hooked again. So for several years, I was doing, all sorts of 5K, 10K, 15K. Did my first marathon in 2014. And at that point, that's just kind of where I left it at. I didn't go any further than a marathon for the next 5 years. I was happy with doing a couple marathons a year, but I was, mostly doing half marathons and things like that. And I was loving doing those shorter distances and all. And then actually another Mind the Ducks participant, Bob Haas, I ended up coming across him at a lot of races and talking with him. And he kind of put the thought and the idea in my mind of doing ultra races and all. So my first ultra was 2019 for Mind the Ducks, and I kind of signed up for it last minute, and I was on the wait list and didn't think I'd get in, and then I got in, and I signed up for it actually because it looked like it was a pretty safe race to do for a first ultra, knowing that I was never more than a mile away from an aid station or a mile away from a bathroom or a mile away from any kind of help if anything went wrong. And I think that's what gave me a lot of confidence to do that first ultra. And it was a tough race. I still didn't know anything about ultras at that time, but ever since then, I've been hooked on ultras, and that's mostly what I do now. To the question of what type of ultras I prefer, I like the timed ones. The 6 and 12 hours. I like doing Martha Doty does that the Bound for the Hounds race. I love that race. Candlelight. I got hooked on doing all those kind of races. But I've done some trail ultras too. I do Finger Lakes 50. I did a trail race up in Vermont. Couple of road 50Ks. So I kind of, I prefer the timed ones, but I really will do any kind of ultra. I love being on the trails, and it's very calming and very beautiful. Even when you're getting beat up doing a couple 1,000-foot climb up some hill. It's still, very peaceful and very, very calming to do. So it's mostly what I do now. I do a couple of shorter races a year, but it's, marathons and beyond now is,
Yeah.
Bob suggested, that was the one thing when talking with him, it's like, as you get older, speed is kind of the first thing that more goes, but endurance kind of lasts, especially if you work at it. And, I've found that that's to be a lot more true.
It's interesting. I have to say that a lot of folks, what I noticed, the hardest thing about getting folks into timed ultras is the idea of running in circles. It's like, I cannot tell you how many times I say, that's nuts. Myself, but I think it's like Nathan is probably the first I heard who said, just, sounds like fun, we'll do it. And what John, you mentioned as well, I think it's like what there's for a lot of folks is appealing for as a first timers ultras, that is safe, that you don't have to worry about, not just this distance from aid station, but as well, it's more like, so what's your goal? Like if you sign up for 50 miles and if you don't finish, if you bail out at mile 47, 3 miles short, just technically didn't finish, versus like in 12 hours, you can, just like whatever the mileage you do, that's what it's like. That's your mileage. So,
yeah.
So anyway, just like that's your running background, athletic background, that stuff. So it's like, do you mind, John, you mentioned like your work was supportive of your running and all that stuff. Do you mind telling us what you do for a living and what you work for and where you get these supportive coworkers?
Yes. So I work at Upstate Medical here in Syracuse. I'm an assistant director with environmental services and linen here. So I oversee the housekeeping and the linen staff at the community hospital here, one of the hospitals at Upstate Medical University. And I've been here with Upstate for about 11 years and with the same team the whole time. And it is, they're a big part of a lot of the success I've had at running. They're very encouraging, not only just to get me into it, but they're always, encouraging me in the runs, seeing how I've done, encouraging me to, push things, sometimes to try things that I might not think I'm capable of. They're always very supportive of that. And it's nice to have a group of people like that to support you and that are there for you. And it's, between them and my family and my sister and my nephews and everything like that, they're a big part of what makes me have the success I do have in any of the races, is just to have that support and know that they're there. But that's
well, and that's great that you have supportive coworkers and your workplace where there's support. So Nathan, how about you? What do you do? So, and does it help you?
Yeah, I work at the University of Rochester. I'm a senior support analyst for for the advancement building right now. So I fix computers, networking, a little bit of everything. If something goes down, we just do support for meetings and conferences. So yeah, and my coworkers always are, they get a kick out of my ultra running and how crazy it all sounds, from doing like Mind the Duck and the Candlelight and the Mighty Mosquito. Because they always say, well, I've never done anything for 12 hours but sleep, maybe, let alone running or moving constantly. So but my biggest cheerleaders are my wife and my mom. They were this year, I was good that my wife actually was able to come out, because she normally works weekends, to see me from the beginning to end. Normally she just catches me like literally like half hour at the end of the race. So that was good to have both of them there, and having it on Mother's Day weekend too. So yeah, it was it's good to have the support people there, just to, even when you're in your body's screaming, no, they're like, come on, let's go. You can do it. Just keep going. Just keep moving. I'm like, fine, let's go.
What, I mean, I think one of the benefits of that timed alters, especially on short loops, is that it's a spectator friendly to some extent,
Yeah.
just as a race director, for example, as well. I do enjoy seeing race progress, just I probably watch that screen a lot as well. Just I'm curious who's going through, just like I just like, you could literally see like in 12 hours how progresses, how you pick certain people and see their body language, that I did notice that this green head guy who was like at the beginning shoot out like really fast, just like, unless he is super talented, I didn't think that he's in the last, honestly, I'm just not stuff for sure enough, that stuff, but I mean, that's me, but it's more like I'm just right now, since you said like your wife was first time she was able to see entire race. So what was her impression about the race? And did she felt it bored at any time, or?
No, she enjoyed it a lot. She likes the like you said, that kind of ultra race, unlike most ultra racing or even obstacle course racing, very spectator friendly. She was encouraging people going through, talking with other people around her that are, cheering their prospective people running through. Minus the cold wind, they were all there. She loved it. So yeah, she was hopefully next year she'll be back there watching me again if everything works out with her work. But yeah, she loved it, and hopefully becomes a common point there every year.
That's good to hear. I mean, I think overall, just like, I mean, I know I have come from as a auto runner myself, haven't run auto in a long time, but, just like love watching folks running, just a race director. So anything you can tell about yourself, which is like interesting hobbies, what you have, or interests besides like obstacle course running and
Something. My hobbies entail. Well, I'm a big jigsaw puzzle fan. I love to do jigsaw puzzles. In going on the same level, like ultra racing. People, like what, they ask me what kind of puzzles, how big, how many pieces, and I'm like, well, my typical one is 1,000, and they're like, wow, that's pretty good. A lot of people have 1,000 pieces, but recently I've done like a 3 and a 5,000 piece puzzle. So, I always try to push the envelope there too. Always, I'm trying to get a bigger and bigger. So I just would run out of room if I tried to do anything else larger. I'd have to take up a whole bedroom and just put wood down on the floor.
so how long it took those 3,000, 5,000?
The 5,000 piece one took, it took me about on and off working on it, probably 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
Solid 6 months, but.
And how much you spend daily on average? Did you?
I would say I was averaging probably every day that I did work on it, probably about a good 3 hours.
3 hours.
Yeah.
Well, less Netflix time, huh? So, I mean, well, my personal view about like some strange habits and all that stuff, just like it's perception of what, just if somebody enjoys it, it doesn't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Why do I care? Just like it's like, if it's popular, it doesn't mean it's the best. Just it's not for everybody.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. John, how about you?
Well, the only puzzles I ever put together are Legos, so I'm not quite as talented there. Outside of running, I'm a big sports fan, and a history nerd, and sometimes I kind of that with the history nerd thing that includes going to a lot of historical areas, and also my nephew and I will go hiking a lot, and we'll go up into areas and find some of the local places where there used to be the old mills or the old buildings and things like that, along a lot of the hiking trails and the running trails. that I go across. It's funny, things you run by 100 times and you don't think anything of. You don't, think of, well, hey, there used to be a mill here 150 years ago, 200 years ago, and then when you look at it and you're like, wow, that's actually quite impressive and quite interesting when you look into the whole stories behind it. Like I said, a huge sports fan, so I go to basketball, football, hockey games. I frequently do that. Throughout the year, the Syracuse basketball, the Syracuse football. I love doing that. Probably my favorite sport though is baseball. I've been a baseball fan since I was a kid, and I still remember all the players from the '80s, let alone through today. But that's pretty much it. I like to also stay active. I go bike riding a lot too. A group of guys, we'll go riding all around Onondaga Lake, down the Erie Canal, all sorts of different places like that. That keeps me. It's a nice side activity, especially on days when you're sore, recovering from running for 12 hours. It's a nice activity to keep you active and recover.
Do you, as far as history goes, do you have a specific period which is your favorite, or local history? Because there's a lot of facets of history.
I like going. So there's the Erie Canal is a big part of around where I am. There's a huge section of it for several miles, so we go to different sections of that and see things. The area itself, there's a park actually right near me that has it's called the Camillus Unique Forest, but it's got little parts along it that have where some of the old mills were that I was talking about, and some of the other things like that too. And there's just a few other areas in just the general area. There's the railroad museum right down the road from me, the old Martisco Railroad Station. We like going down there and just seeing the old railroad history stuff that they have there. And you can still kind of walk along and near the tracks and still see a lot of things that were there from many years ago. And it's just it's really cool just to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, very good. So I get to go back to, I made a note on my paper, but I forgot to ask. It's more like, so Nathan, you mentioned that when you were like in a high school and college, you were a sprinter?
Yes.
Sprinter.
Yeah, I did in high school and college, I did between 200 and 400 mainly. 1 year I tried to do cross country in high school, and I was like, a 5K? Really? No, too far. Too far. So yeah, but no, mainly I did sprints. Yeah.
Yeah. The Candlelight regular winner, Jason Mintz, when we interviewed him, he said like he was coming from sprint background. So, and I thought it was odd, just I thought never heard sprinter getting into autos, but being not just getting into autos, but being successful auto runner. But I guess it's like right now I'm seeing some kind of trend. Maybe just we'll need to like recruit some like high school sprinters for the auto runners future.
There you go.
So what's next for you as far as autos plans goes? And plus as well, one thing with it, be curious, what's your typical training schedule? How many miles do you put in usually, just if you're not racing or when you're preparing for a race?
Well, for me, I think the next one I just decided, haven't entered yet, but I will be. It's just when someone posted on the Facebook group the 9 hours for 9 lives. So I'll be doing that one because that one sounds interesting. About the loops are 1.75 miles, so it'll be a little bit different. After that, I'm really gonna kick it into high gear for the 100 for the Mighty Mosquito at the beginning of August. So those are the 2 that I have right now on my calendar. As far as training goes, it's going to definitely kick up a notch after the 9 hours for 9 lives. I typically work out, I would say about 5 times a week. And most of that is what I call functional fitness or cross training. I just don't do very often. I don't do running, straight just running. And I am, if you may have heard, I know some people even on the race knew, I don't know how they knew that I was that person, but I'm the one who constantly runs with a weight vest. So I'm running all my like training runs with between anywhere from 20 to 30 pounds on my weight with my weight vest. And a lot of it entails when I talk about cross training or functional fitness. So I'll be running on the trails. So at the end of every mile, I'll do I'll stop, do like burpees or squats, lunges, and then keep running. And I do that after every mile. So however long, either time wise or mileage wise. And for mileage total, I would say I'm averaging, well, like I did for this one, probably about 30 to 40 miles. If that's going to crank up a little bit for the 100, probably around no more than probably 50 miles a week per se, but yeah, kick it up a little bit more.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad to hear that you can win a races with 30 to 40 miles. And one thing I think it's where I fell short as well. I'm preaching, but I didn't do myself. It's like cross training. I'm glad to hear that. I personally believe that it's cross training. Being athlete who likes to run is a better way than runner who likes just to run. Because if you're just in a runner's mindset, then we tend to overlook just other things and if your body is healthy, everything is gonna come. It's not about the quantity, it's about the quality, Miles. So,
Right.
very good. I'm glad to hear that. So, John?
All right. So running wise, my next race, I'm doing the Buffalo Marathon in next weekend. And then after that, I was looking at the 9 hour for 9 lives. I may do that. But the next one after that, I've got a couple races this summer. I'm doing the Finger Lakes 50 again this year. Be doing Candlelight again this year. And then this year I'm going to be trying the Twisted Branch 100K, which to understand is quite a bit of climbing. So that'll hopefully I make it through that one alive. And then from talking with Nathan, that Mighty Mosquito, I've come across that before, and that's one that's, if not this year, one of these years in the near future, but it's definitely been on my radar to do, and definitely would be interested. For mileage, it's in the same neighborhood as Nathan, just without having 2 bowling balls strapped to me. I don't. That's insanely impressive to hear that you do that. That's I'm not the least bit surprised with how successful you are, though. But that's impressive. I can't say that enough. For my mileage, it's in that right now. It's in that 25 to 30 range most weeks. Some weeks up to 40. But more so this year, it's been in that 20, 25 to 30. And as the weather gets warmer, and more importantly, as there's more daylight, my mileage will increase. But even there, I probably won't get much more above like 40. One thing I have found this year, though, that I have come across and I found that I wouldn't have believed in the past is I can do doing a lot more miles that are just slow and steady instead of having to go out there and try to push it for all the miles. I found a lot of, I read about how a lot of successful runners spend 80% of their time doing easy miles. And that kind of started out of necessity with just, the only time being able to get out to run is just to get out to some of the trails and do some easy running. But I found that actually has been quite helpful. So I do a lot of my running on the trails. I still get a good workout from doing the hills. There's a lot of climbing in our area. but it's without the stress of constantly worrying about hitting a certain pace and everything. You know, there's a couple workouts a week where you do focus on that, but when you spend a lot more time focusing on just getting the mileage in, I found I've actually been more successful and felt better this year doing it that way.
Very good. It's like to your comment about slow miles and steady miles. It's like somewhere I read a quote that most amateurs runners make this mistake that they go too fast, slow miles, and too slow, the fast miles. And the temptation is to always to run fast at the slow miles, and then when you run fast, slow miles, then you don't have energy to run fast, the fast miles. So therefore it's like kind of like losing that. And so just like, that's a good message and good practice to, just run
That
out.
was a mistake I made for a lot of years. That's how I did it. I would have never thought that there was any benefit to doing the slower miles. And I guess that's part of the wisdom of, getting older.
For slower.
Yes.
Yeah. Nathan, the vest, how heavy vest you wear? 30 pounds, you said?
It goes anywhere from me. I normally stick between 20 and 30 pounds.
20 and 30 pounds. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it something that you just, where did you come up with that method? Did you just do it for heck of
Actually,
it?
I got it from an obstacle course racer professional. I saw his training videos, and he obviously was very successful in running a lot of the Spartan races that he did. And that's what he used to train with, is the 20 to 30 pound weight vest, and going and then stopping, doing, he's like a lot, and a very elite athlete. I was very impressed because he also was a marathoner, and he was doing like 2 hour, 18-minute marathons. So before he started doing the obstacle course racing, and I picked that up, and that has been probably the single best thing I could have ever come across, because that has helped every aspect of my running, both my body physically, and just even with my lungs and everything like that, just getting better with my breathing, and it's been a lifesaver. It really has.
Yeah. How does it help breathing?
Well, because you're strapped with all this weight around your chest, and depending on how tight it is, it actually helps you learn to control your breathing. Because you can easily, when I first started running with it, I could easily I was like almost hyperventilating, because I wasn't in rhythm with the bounce of the weight vest while running. And so there really is a rhythm to running with the weight vest in how you breathe. And so I developed that, and I still have issues with, going out too fast, and, getting that like short-winded very quickly, but then my body finally gets into the race, and then you're breathing better. But that has helped my lung capacity a little bit. It was like, when I've measured the VO2 and things like that, that has increased a little bit since been using the weight vest. So
yeah. It's interesting. It's right now, just coincidentally, last week I listened to podcasts about breathing, and one thing that I learned, that I am not breathing correctly. I mean, and most people don't breathe correctly. And I just like right now, just listening, the weight vest will teach you how to breathe. And I mean, there's certain different things. It's like, but it's interesting to find those connections right now.
yeah.
So, okay. Well, guys, well, congratulations again about your wins and just participating, and glad you joined this interview, and good luck with your next adventures in outer world and in life, and hopefully see you again in one of the outers.
Oh yes.
Have a good one, guys.
Thank you. You too.